Welcome, everybody. You're listening to Out Comes the Sun podcast with Mariel Hemingway and my wonderful co-host, Melissa Yamaguchi. And today, we're talking about a lot of different things, but I really wanted to address this because I was in Spain recently speaking to a university. Thank you very much, Melissa, because you actually set that up. But it was wonderful because they were so hungry, these students, right? Young people, really hungry to learn about mental health, illness, what they can do, right?
Mhm.
Because
Yep.
I think the future of mental health is really at a critical place right now. I think we are, we can go one way or the other, but I think that we're actually, especially in America, I think we're headed down a pretty good path
Yeah.
towards educating people. And I think it really is about education. What are your thoughts? Because I was telling this group, I said it's lifestyle, but it's also about being educated about what things in your life might be detrimental to your mental health. For instance, social media, you know, uh,
Yep.
the fact that we're not connecting, all of
Right.
that. But I think we need to educate our youth about the boundaries that we need to put up around these wonderful things that are in our lives, but they're also causing tremendous anxiety.
Well, I I think that the future generations are or even the all current generations, regardless of age, are at a really cool time because we have so much more information available to us. When I was a kid, you didn't talk about your crazy uncles and aunties. You didn't talk about them. You chalked it up to, oh, he was in the war, or oh, she drinks a little. You didn't really chalk it up to mental illness. You didn't talk about it. And if it was very severe, that was a family member that went away that no one really ever saw or talked about. Now it's so much more out there. And because what's happening is, because of what you just talked about, the social media, because of the the food additives that we're exposed to more and more. Back when I was a kid, a lot of people, we did have food at the grocery store, but there's a lot of food that came from your gardens. And I
Yeah.
make it sound like I was from Little House on the Flippin' Prairie, but still, now
Well,
it's
well,
so
my
different.
girl,
Well, it's so different now that the kids
it
are,
is so different.
everybody, regardless of age, are realizing there's a lot of stuff in my food, there's a lot of stuff in my water, there's a lot of stuff in the soil, even if I'm getting farmers market stuff, there's a lot of stuff out there, but they're aware of it. Awareness is key to everything.
Where is
And
key?
are encouraging people to say, hey, if you feel anxiety, depression, OCD, ADHD, bipolarism, whatever's happening, it's okay. You're still a productive member of society. We want you. Here's what we can do to move forward. I think in the past, not only was there not awareness, but there was so much isolation. And again, you and I keep going back to this, but I'm going to keep saying it. We saw what isolation does to us during COVID. And so it takes the best of us and knocks us down 14 pegs. So I think this is a really ripe time.
Oh, absolutely. And people are, I mean, when you think about our youth, 60s, 70s, whatever, it was a different time. It
Yep.
was a cleaner time. The air wasn't as polluted. There weren't as many pesticides. Yeah, there were, they had moments of but now it's like Roundup is like par for the course on practically every, big, huge commercial corporate farm
Yeah.
other than these. That's why we have to, it's almost like we're going back in time. We have to go back in time in order to garner our strength and our and kind of take back our power when it comes to our own health, right?
Well, every
It's so important.
Oh, I'm sorry, Meryl. Every time something good is designed for mankind, it is every time it's abused.
Yeah,
It's abused to the
yeah,
point where now it almost has to be crippled and started over again. For example, there are different agencies that have been developed and designed so that mercury couldn't get into our toothpaste, or certain chemicals weren't allowed in our canned meats, which were the cans that were holding the tuna and the chicken or whatever,
yeah.
the spam or whatever, was the little Vienna sausage, whatever those the meats were there were regulations placed on the metal that was containing them so that that wouldn't leak into the meat. And those canned meats were designed during wartime for sustainability so that people would have something if the lights went out or if bombs were dropped or whatever
Yeah.
was happening. There's been a reason why we've done things. Then there's been a reason why we've tried to regulate it. And then there comes a time when it just flies out of control and the people are realizing, holy smokes. And I'm not anti-government, anti-agency, anti-institution. That's not me saying this. What I'm saying is everybody has to be aware of his or her own path and understand, hey, if I eat Spam or Vienna sausages or canned whatever, I find that I'm not feeling as well. Like, pay attention to your individual health. Awareness is key. Being a part of the collective instead of being isolated is important. Find your people. And I think also being honest about what works for you. So I've got friends who swear by fluoride in their toothpaste, and I've got other friends who say, don't you dare put fluoride in my toothpaste. So it's like an ongoing battle. Well, you know who's right? The person who determines that whatever they're doing works for them.
Yeah, that's true, but there is a lot of information about fluoride. Fluoride was kind of one of these byproducts of a, a mining situation. They didn't know what to do with it. It was extra. So they
Mhm.
decided to give it to the dental community. Anyway, that's a whole
Yeah,
story.
yeah.
Anyway,
And the dental community
you're
is very up
right.
in arms about it, but it's just about
And the
knowing.
truth, and the truth is, I was talking about this with somebody the other day about wellness and healing. And that this goes for your mental health as well. Belief, belief is
Yeah.
90% of whether you're going to make it through no matter what path you've taken. But
Yes.
belief in what you're doing is huge. If you have, it's why placebo effects actually work for, you know what I mean? It's, and I'm not discounting one thing or the other. In fact, I'm saying, look, whatever you put your heart and soul into is going to have much greater effect mentally, physically, emotionally, in that balance. And I just think I think the future really just holds this opportunity to encourage, our teachers and our educational society to, bring back some of those funky things that we did when we were in school, like gym, hello. We had to, and the president's, remember the president's thing that you had to do, the
Chin
president,
ups and all that stuff. Yeah.
you had to do like this thing, and if you were really good, you got an award, you
Yes.
climb the rope and all that stuff. And it was hard. Yes, it was hard, but that was awesome because kids did it and kids were excited and they were competitive. It trained us to do all these things. I think that we have to get some version of home ec back into school, that
Hey, hey, hey.
maybe it's not home ec, maybe it's like teaching about food,
Maybe,
really
maybe we
about
teach our
food.
kids about how to balance a checkbook. Maybe we teach them about
I
how
know.
money works. The truth of the matter is, some of the basic life skills, yes. And I just want to have just a nanosecond of silence for my gym teacher, Mrs. Greenway, and her coffee cup, and my home ec teacher, Mrs. Robertson, and her willingness to overlook my horrible crocheting. We had to do house shoes, and I knitted one. Hey, hey, and it looked like it was for someone who was missing his or her toes. But you know what? I passed. But I agree with you. I think bringing back those classes,
Yeah.
I have fond memories of that time. I
And
have, we all did, and I know that there have been cuts and shifts and changes for whatever reason. And I'm unfortunately not educated and privy enough to know why why certain things were cut back. I don't understand why music and art and gym time and some of the arts, the humanitarian subjects were taken from the kids. They said it was funding and we had to push more of the STEM. Look, the science is fantastic, science and math. And I think it's because they were pitting our kids against other countries to stay ahead for certain subjects. Beautiful. But life skills, and I think are vital. And I think probably the coolest thing that in my opinion, from your talks with the kids in the university, with my talks with kids in vocational schools, is that they want to take control of their lives. and they're almost waiting they're waiting for permission, and they don't need permission. It's your life. It's you.
Right.
It's your life. You have to step up. You have to research. If I would have had the internet available to me when I was in school, I think it might have been dangerous because I was always in the library looking up
Yeah.
the, listen, they didn't call me Melissa Dewey Decimal for nothing, baby. I was always in that library. Look it up, folks. I was always researching. If I
Yeah.
had this at my fingertips, can you imagine what our life would have been like as kids?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Our technology is a great gift. I mean, the advancement of humanity is exponential and
Yes,
it will continue. And we've got AI and we've got all these, we've got things that are amazing and a little bit scary. And I think that we have to, as part of our mental health is to know that these things are not human, are not
yes,
us, and that we have to stay connected to the humanity of us in order
yes.
to stay balanced. Because, these, when we're talking about food and all that other stuff, also the mental health issues that are so prevalent now were not prevalent back in our day. Everything has gone a little haywire because we've lost I think, our connection to our humanity, to what really makes us human. We're so like involved in our technology that we're not being involved in our regular everyday life. I don't know, we're not connecting to the earth. And I,
I
you
think that,
know,
well, I think some things have always been around, Mariel. I would lightly disagree, just because I remember as a kid, I was in a town where there was a school for the deaf. I have an older brother who's deaf, was born deaf. And so I was in a town where there were deaf kids because there was a specific school for the deaf kids. So we saw them, the kids that were deaf around town, and my brother was one. So I knew a lot of the kids. They'd spend the night at the house. Um, and I remember going to when I went to college, I remember people saying, I've never met a deaf person. They didn't even know how to say it. They didn't pronounce it DEAF like Frank. They were pronouncing it DEATH like underground. And they didn't understand that it was deaf, that they thought it was death. And they hadn't been exposed. But then I started learning that during that time, when people were not talking about it, a lot of deaf kids were sent away and put over there because families didn't want them around. So I think we've always had issues. I think the excitement about
I
now,
wasn't talking about like disabled or, deaf or blind. I'm talking about some of the things that are actually created by the food, by the chemicals. I'm talking about like the possibility that that's the case.
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe it isn't. Maybe they were all underground and maybe they were always there.
we hide a lot of stuff because we don't know how to deal with it. Like if I'm embarrassed or I don't understand someone's infidelity or someone's betrayal or cheating, I don't talk about it. And we're at such an exciting time in our world where we're asking people to share their stories. You said when the very first time I ever met you, you said your stories, I'm going to paraphrase, your stories will set you free, in essence, something like that. And about how the stories give you license to own your life instead of being under the pressure and the weight of the story. So
Absolutely.
I think that when people are able to, I mean, sometimes people, we've said this a million times on the show, they overshare the hell out of stories on social media to the point where you now know whether they wear G strings or granny panties. It's just way out of control. But I think that we being able to, I, I, I think it's a double-edged sword. Let me back up.
Yeah.
Let me speak out of both sides of my face now. On one hand, we've got so much information, and on the other hand, we've got so much information. So guiding forces, those of us who know about this subject, and I don't put myself in that category, I just talk about it with you on here, but those who are in the know, who have studied this and who speak about it and who are the leading forces, have such a great opportunity to reach in a positive way people who are seeking, because people are looking now, they're learning. Well, some of our famous singers have bipolarism, or a gal that I really like has severe autism, who's a major singer or whatever, and they are looking for guidance.
Well, I think it's wonderful that, in many ways, sometimes that door into somebody's private life that's extremely famous enables another person who might be going through something similar to go, oh my gosh, it's
Yeah,
not just it's not just me, or it's not just a person like me, or a person who lives in a neighborhood that's not so nice. It happens to the best of us, right? And that's why I have always told my story. I didn't think it was the best story, the most terrific story. I only told it to say, look, we've all got one. We
Yeah.
all have trauma in our lives. We've all had to overcome something, all of us. Even if you're the happiest person ever, there's always something that you've
Yep.
stumbled over. That, I mean, you being a teacher of energy knows that. I mean, the times change. Yeah,
Right.
there's just so many things that can affect somebody's mental state. And so, and what I was saying is that, when you tell your story, that it does set you free, because then your story no longer is you're not a victim to your story. It's not
Right.
controlling you from the back, from inside you, because you've told it. Because once you've told it, it's just a story. It no longer is like this daunting thing that you can't talk about, that you're scared of. Any kind of trauma that you deal with and put words to, and I don't mean that you get on social media and share your inner darkest secrets, but anytime you can verbalize a pain and a trauma,
Yeah.
it and it's not the sole solution, but it gets you on the journey towards, okay, that, look, I'm still alive. I told my story. I'm still here. And actually I feel a little bit better. I feel that this has less of a hold on me. And then you can move towards your recovery, towards that solution. And everybody, and I have always said this on our podcast with you, is that everybody has a solution, but not everybody's solution is the same, right? It's not. Even if you're bipolar, or whatever it is, or have suicide ideation, it's not a specific draw. It's like a pattern of lifestyle and all that stuff. And that's why I think, getting back to the original kind of topic, it's like, let's get back to educating people on all the different things that you can do,
Yep.
have the power to do, through your
Yep.
food, through your getting sunlight, getting light in your eyes, all these different things that are so fundamental to our mental well-being.
Absolutely. And that to the point we've been making. Every
Yeah.
one of us has the opportunity to find out information, ask for help, and determine what fits us best.
Yeah.
What is best for us? No one size fits all. Not
No.
not in anything. Not in anything. And
Not,
so
I mean, and this is the world of, like, you better be keto, you better be vegan, you better be this, like, there's not one diet. There's not one, you don't,
yeah,
and not everybody's going to go to one therapist. I mean, it's like, we all have to find that path that works.
right.
I know my pattern. I know what makes me, like, well, because we talk every day, I'm going
Yeah,
through a really stressful part of my life, but I'm actually really excited to see myself using the tools that I've learned and seeing
yeah,
them work, because
yeah,
I'm still
yeah,
sleeping.
yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, oh,
I know. I know you said on the last thing,
confident.
I shouldn't be sleeping right now, but I am. Yeah. I should be standing on my head, but I'm
You're
upright.
just passed out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, in the darkest of times is, it's when the strength of who we are comes forward. And I think the cool thing is you do have tools. The other cool things for people who don't have tools is they can find them, and they can listen to podcasts like ours. They can go to the library if they're still around. They can go to bookstores and look up books in sections and find out, what can I do? They can look it up on the information on their phone. It's an
Absolutely.
exciting time because it's available. It's not hidden.
It's available. I think what's a little bit daunting for me is that, not knowing what information
Oh yeah.
is correct and what isn't. I think that can be disturbing. And I think that's the precipice, or kind of the reason why we want to create this Mariel Hemingway Foundation, resource navigator, is we want to be able to say, oh yeah, this one works. This, of these patterns,
Here's
of
your
holistic
options. Yep.
healing we have really vetted this, and this seems to
Yes.
be very valid. So, because I think there is a lot of misinformation out there, and that's, that's rough.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Well, it's all open to all of us. It's an exciting, beautiful time. It's
It
scary,
is.
but
Yeah.
lasso up. It's exciting time. Just get out there, be proactive. That's the most important thing we want you to do.
Yeah, be proactive and don't be afraid to reach out to somebody and get help. Don't be afraid to talk to somebody. Don't be afraid to look into something that you're a little scared to look into,
You just
because
gotta,
it's never as bad as you think it is in your head.
you
And
gotta reach out and touch somebody's hand. We're ready.
oh my gosh, this is so good. Well, thank you everyone for listening to our conversation about kind of our vision of what the future of mental health is. Thank you so much. You're listening to Out Comes the Sun with Melissa Yamaguchi and myself, Mariel Hemingway.